Thanks, Jules. I think just to start out with, we want to say that this was not our idea. It's all Art School Africa, so we don't get the credit, but we have the responsibility of trying to keep today casual and as fun as possible. I think no one in this room knows how this is going to go, and I think we've got some very brave artists who said yes, because
They didn't know better.
creating anything on the spot, creating anything, let alone on the spot, is a big deal. I'm not sure what's happening with the lights. So I think we can just, Jana's going to introduce the artists so we know who we have with us today, and then I'll chat a little bit about the structure that we've planned, and we go from there.
Cool. Okay. So
Wait, do you maybe want to come up to the stage?
just make it worse for them.
No,
From bad to worse.
It's not a beauty pageant. I think they can't come up one by one like this. Sit here.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Luca. This is Luca Evans. I'm just reading their bios. I don't want to get anything wrong. Luca is a Cape Town-based artist who works with wood and text. They currently work from a studio in Paarden-Eiland where they utilize a hit-and-miss experimental approach to carpentry and marquetry. We'll get into what marquetry is because I'm pretty sure no one knows. Their popish work plays with ideas around language, failure, mishap, and humor. They also co-founded Under Projects, an artist-run experimental project space where they work as a curator and programmer, and then also lecture part-time in conceptual and curatorial practice.
Hello.
Next up, we've got Zaneka Singh. Zaneka Singh's work explores the complex history of the sugar economy in South Africa and its entanglement with exploitative labor practices, migration, colonialism, and the dynamics of the domestic sphere. Working across painting, sculpture, and installations, Singh interrogates the largely state-produced archive of images and text-related to indentured South African Indians in the period 1860 to 1911. Next up, we've got Helena Wambembe. Helena is an interdisciplinary artist. I just heard that she lives in Berlin now, not Johannesburg.
I don't live in Joburg. I live in Pretoria. There's a difference.
There's a huge difference. I'm from Pretoria. There's a huge difference. Working with textiles, printmaking, photography, and performance. Drawing on her own life story, Helena reflects on the erasure of histories of conflict and complicity of South Africa's wars in Angola and Namibia, and the unspoken legacies of those wars that shadow the present. And then last but not least, or a quick round of applause, Zander Blom, a contemporary painter born in 1982 in Pretoria who currently resides in Cape Town. Is that correct to you? He is most known for his contemporary abstract monochrome paintings, having started out working with installation, drawing, printmaking, and photography. So we've got a big Pretoria contingent here, actually. Something in the water in Pretoria. Yeah, I'll let Koos take over. I think, like we said, this is when we first heard about this concept, which was let's put some artists on stage and make them blindly create some art. Koos and I were both like, that is the worst nightmare of any artist ever. But I think the point of this is an experiment in, as a greater theme of play for the whole art fair, kind of investigating just how that process works and the behind the scenes, which is normally very very messy and interesting and often backwards, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure that by now everyone knows, but the whole theme of this year's the art fair is play. And for us, what really was interesting about this topic and why we thought it would be interesting to focus in on a area that I think we never really speak much about is like, where do you start? Like, what is the beginning parts of ideas? I think there's a lot of airplay and oxygen given to final meaning and that, but as artists also, I think it's very interesting for us to know like how the beginnings. And so for us today, I think on that topic, we thought what we're going to do is we don't want to just blindly go create something. We've made some prompts and I'll give them out as a starting point. After which you'll choose some art materials a limited set of art materials, but Luca told us that she actually prefers some restrictions just now, so hopefully there's enough to make something with. We're then going to see how it goes with just some making, seeing how comfortable you are. We might add some questions in while you're making, but like we'll feel that out, and then just discuss it afterwards. So for us, we're going to try and keep it in the realm of play, experimentation, and exploration. I think there's we might find our way. The questions might go in some different directions, but I think if we can try and focus it in on there and hold ourselves to that, that's our aim for today. On that topic, we thought that it might be a good place to start. We wanted to ask a universal question to all of you, because when Jana and I were doing a bit of research on everyone, we discovered that there's a golden thread between all of you, in that it seems that there's an element of invention of the medium that has become quite significantly recognizable of all of your practices, and recognizable as who your art personalities. We'd like to ask you all maybe what role exploration and trying, testing out things had in the lead up to where you are now, because I think it often looks like the final product is so refined, it got there easy. Maybe it did, and that's the answer, but I think it would be great to just hear a little bit of insight on that from each of you. You want to start?
Sure. Hello. So for me, it feels like I tend to think about the studio as a machine for making, and I kind of put the blame on the studio if something doesn't work out, rather than myself. And the way things tend to work is that I would make a body of work, and then through some accident that happens while I'm doing that, it would suggest the next body of work. So I find the accidents that happen in the studio are more interesting than ideas that I could come up with myself. And I've tended to try and follow the medium instead of, or what the paint wants to do, rather than to follow what my brain wants to do, or follow what your hands want to do with the medium, and like just put that thinking brain back. Especially, I think in abstraction, which I've been working in for a long time, you can't will one medium to do something that it just inherently can't do. So it's for me, it's about finding a way to make your paint or your canvas sparkle, or finding interesting combinations of techniques. I feel like if you have an interesting surface with an interesting kind of paint, that makes the thing sparkle, you almost just have to not fuck it up. Like, you're halfway there if you have interesting materials. Like, if you go to the art shop and buy like your standard canvas with your standard paintbrush, with your standard paint, to will that into something magical, some alchemy, is like it's almost too much to ask. So it's about explorations of paint and accidents and blah blah blah. But it's a good start.
No, I love that. In our studio also, we have like a mantra that goes like, trust the happy accidents, because you'll take something over from this screen to that screen and it inverts, and we're like, wait, go back, Apple Z to that thing, like trust those moments, because they come along, they kind of feel like little glimmers of it shows you the way, but you have to like trust it.
Yeah. And to expand on that, I think that when I was younger, it was much harder to find those things, because if something comes quickly, then you doubt it. Then you're like, well, my Calvinist guilt, I haven't worked hard enough to get to this point, so like I don't deserve it. And so then you ignore it, and then you work for another 12 hours, and the thing's a mess. So you have to actually be gentle on yourself and accept those things, and just say, I will take it. Thank you. Yes, universe. You know.
Helena, I think you're mic'd, so we don't need to share.
What was the question?
Yeah, but no, thinking of the studio, I never really had a studio. I would work from my sister's house, her garage, and I would then experiment. So home was my studio, and I think my practice takes the shapes in the idea of home. Um, and also affordability, like prompted or directed how I made certain things and how I make certain things now. Um, Canvas is expensive. Even a standard brush is expensive. So finding ways, like paper became more affordable, and I could cut up a big sheet into smaller sheets and make work and have work to show. Um, so I really also became interested in different types of materials and what they could make. So using textiles, scrap materials that you can buy at a fabric store, and what is around you. Like, since the home was my studio, when I was in Pretoria, it was my sister's studio. Then I rented out an apartment, because also finding a studio is pricey. And now that I do have a studio, it looks a bit different, but I always decorate my studio to have a home feel, and that informs the practice. So instead of using a brush, I'm interested in knowing how a microfiber cloth can, can be used to apply paint. Um, it's trying and failing. It's starting something, leaving it, and then maybe starting it again. It's accepting. I don't think it's even failures, because even the refined process, what is the refined process? Sometimes the refined product is dictated by a deadline and an exhibition that's happening. The work needs to be shipped out. It's accepting what it is, because you can't control. There's so much you can control as well.
Yeah, and I think there's magic in that uncontrollable. It's manufacturing in that. Zineka, can you still remember the question?
Yes. So experimentation is huge to my practice. I think that's pretty much how I started playing around with sugar as well, because I didn't really have like a guidebook on how to do it. But a lot of cooking videos on YouTube have been very helpful. But it was also my undergraduate degree at Michaelis, while I was finishing it, when I knew I wanted to speak about my heritage of indenture, I found sugar to be the best way to talk about it in a subtle way. And just thinking about the big economy of sugar that's been in our lives for centuries now. So it's always been a process of experimentation, and I always get bored of doing the same thing over and over. So I'm constantly trying to explore and find new ways of working with sugar. One of the first ways I did it was to cast it in sugar glass. So that was a lot of trial testing with my studio mates, me just heating up sugar late at night and trying to make caramel, unintentionally making molasses, but fortunately not triggering any fire alarms. To sugar coating with sugar, and also trying to see how it adheres to the surface over time, because it's also a matter of problem solving on my part to figure out how to make it archivable and durable, especially if I'm taking it out to the art space and a collector wants to give my work a new home. So what kind of guarantee can I give to my work? Like, oh, is it just going to be melted off in the next week, or is it... So it's constantly exploration and experimentations in that way, kind of like a little mad scientist. But yeah, it always it leads me to other inquiries. Yeah.
I remember the question, sparing of material. For me, with my material, which is wood, there's a lot of experimentation in that I've taught myself most of what I do. I approach my material, I would say, with a lot of respect and love. Most of the wood I use was grown long before I was born. I work exclusively with offcuts, partly for financial reasons, partly I use a lot of yellow wood, which is now protected. So I use old floorboards. I was recently gifted some cedar wood that came from a railway sleeper in Taiwan from a timber yard that was closed 300 years ago. Wow. The wood is old and it's precious and it's irreplaceable. So when I have a piece of wood in my studio, I'm very aware that it has a history and that it's not manufactured. It's not something that even if it's not in reams of canvas. It's not a thing that people are producing. And each piece is so unique. I'm very like intimately aware with the pieces of wood that I have in terms of their grain. Wood also has, if you've worked with it, a mind of its own. If you chisel wood, it either cooperates with you or it doesn't. So I see it as quite a collaborative process. It is physically grueling. I get injured a lot. I'm clumsy. I hurt myself. So yeah, I feel like I approach my material with the feeling that we are both entering the work and that this sounds like ridiculous, but I feel like we're really sharing the studio and
It's a partnership.
it's a partnership. I need to respect the wood. It was there
Absolutely.
first.
I mean, as a interjection question, but how did you get to wood? Was that wasn't your first practice, or was wood your first medium?
No, I worked at ceramic first. I think I just loved it. I think I loved tools first. I had built a little bit of furniture with my mom. I think the first time I used a jigsaw, it was like a gender affirming experience. I was just like, tools are cool. They made me feel strong. And I love it. If I see a good table, I'm just like, damn, look at that. Look at that wood.
Brilliant.
I don't know. Some people just love it. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of our lives. It's not a thing you discover. It's a thing you grow up with. It's on the floor. It's around you all the time. Yeah, it's a very approachable medium. Whether you're not involved in art, you're always interacting with wood in some way.
Yeah.
I was
That's
going to
great.
ask, and on the topic of experimentation, I think as an artist, it seems like you're dedicated enough to the process of experimenting to have started under projects.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about what that is?
We had a space which we've now lost or given up for lack of funds. It was an artist-run space with 3 collaborators, which we ran for 2 years, where we did it voluntarily. Every month we weren't sure if we would have the next month's rent. We did no sales, no commissions to kind of keep it experimental. And we kind of just shared the space with as many curators and artists as we could. At the moment, our practices have kind of taken over, so we're kind of on a break. But yeah, it was just like a space to make things happen. And I guess a lot of artist practice, you're kind of alone in your studio, so it was a way of sort of connecting with other people in the arts community. And I think Cape Town has a very thriving commercial scene, which is a wonderful thing for artists, but there is not a lot of sort of non-commercial spaces. So we were kind of trying to offer that for some younger artists and older artists. Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks. It's great to get a small insight into all of your workings. I think maybe we can talk forever, but shall we start messing around and see how this goes? So what we've done is we've made a bunch of prompts. These are sentences with blanks in. You can pick one out of here, or 2. If you don't like yours, you can take another one.
You can choose to ignore it completely.
You can also choose to ignore it. I think we were just thinking that a starting point might help. Yeah. Yeah.
Says extremely dash and incredibly dash.
Make of that what you want. We'll see. So if you have that, I think you can put your strange little aprons on again and make your way over to the
The
craft
aprons.
table.
What's yours?
Greeted
Pick
by the
some.
blank.
Oh, wow.
What does yours say?
Greeted by the blank. Yeah.
I Therefore, I.
Luca?
If only there was a little bit more. Which could be the end, but then there is a blank.
Wood.
A little more wood.
How much wood? Please take whatever you need there or think you can work with. We've allocated 30 minutes. That might be too long or too little. Let's see how it goes. We'll check in. And while you're busy, I think for the first 15 minutes, or 10 to 15 minutes, we're just going to let you do stuff. We'll check in when it's time to maybe ask some more questions, soft, easy questions to answer while working. And then while you're doing that, I think Jana and I, we're thinking that we always, whenever we do a talk, and because we're just like trying out something completely new, there seems to be not enough time for question and answers. So we're going to open question and answers to the audience in this first time. Hopefully there are some questions and we'll fill up the time. If there are no questions, we have some music that we can play. But I have a feeling that might be even more awkward. So,
And just lastly, to the artists, like we said, we got the horries when we heard about having to do something like this. I think artists are generally people that are quite internal, and the process is something like sacred, and I guess it is very experimental, and it's definitely not. I even struggle to do anything in our studio with Koos, who's basically like family, just because you just don't know where you start and where you end. So I don't think the point of this at all is to do something good. I think the point of this is to kind of show people how bad the first point of the process can be. You know, it's just about starting somewhere.
I mean, since we're at a fair, if you do like one of our pieces, and we'll share a commission with
Of
you
course,
guys.
I mean these are still going to be extremely valuable regardless. You know,
In the process,
there's a giant auction after this.
don't make anything too good because the Western owns it.
Oh no!
I'm joking. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
You know what I was thinking we should have done, Koos, is have some audience members also do this. Yeah.
Oh. Sorry guys, but we have some pastels, we have modeling clay, charcoal, paint we're not really allowed to use, but we're going to put color. In any case,
Sorry.
there are some bowls on the table if anyone wants to use those, if you want to eat or anything.
I'm going to wear it.
We'll wear it.
I'm going to use this, but whoever else wants it, should we sit next to each other?
Okay.
I assume.
Oh,
Well, I'm just going to put it in. Okay.
sorry. Okay, no. Seriously. Yes, sorry.
Just take it all.
I'll take this.
Yeah.
I swapped you over because me and Zander are using the paint.
Huh?
I swapped us around because.
I'm also gonna.
Oh, okay.
get
Then we'll
something.
just we'll swap it around.
Let's just take this on the table. Sorry.
Go.
Oh, it's just
Thank
a
you.
board on its own. Okay.
Okay, cool. Then also magazine if we manage to cut anything out of there.
Bunch of
I know we'll share on the table.
I think we should just put everything on the table.
Actually.
Yeah, because I think we'll need everything probably.
Perfect. You guys want to pop this on there as well? Together, these.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And black feather. Yeah, I'm gonna
Take a magazine.
So how long do we have just out of.
half an hour.
No, okay. I just want to know how long I can like stare at the blank square.
Okay.
Is there something?
Okay.
We rock it either way.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, you're just going for it.
I'm just going for it.
Do you know where the charcoal sticks are?
Over
okay.
there. Here.
No, I wanted to grab a charcoal stick. But I see it now. Oh. Oh.
The table.
Hello. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to stay out your way.
I already left a mark. I'll sign the table and then we auction it.
I love that. And the president of Africa.
Yay.
Oh. Yes, this is. Yeah.
You're doing great. You got this.
Fear this might just make me hungry instead.
What?
I fear this might just make me hungry instead. That's okay.
Luckily, we.
They got me sticks.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll get sugar from there.
What? Can we ask each other questions or no?
Yeah?
Can we
I
ask
don't
each
know.
other questions? Yeah.
Maybe ask
What
them.
do you know?
Yeah?
Can
We'll-
we ask each other questions?
Of course, 100%.
What do you think about while you're creating?
Hold on, we'll get them to put the music down
Yeah.
and the
I
crowd.
guess I
Shush.
just get lost in the work, especially.
Hold your question, we're just going to get them to
Okay.
have some attention.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Audience needs an
So,
Yeah.
as everyone's off, and we have the attention again, we were thinking it might be cool. Jana and I actually haven't had a chance to just talk about art in years because we've just been designing our little asses off always. But I thought of some questions for Jana that I haven't had a chance to ask you. And I think I've always thought that you're an amazing illustrator, but you seem to not enjoy illustrating. And I'm always amazed by the fact that you disappear. And even for our open studios the other night, you were like, I've got a few things, and you came back with 20 artworks. So you seem to be very fast and make a lot of art in batches. I wonder, I'd like to know, like, where do you start? Or how do you decide it's time to make art? Or because it seems to be a bit sporadic. Like, and what role does it play for you?
Okay, I'm a huge procrastinator. So for me, unlike you, who I think is very dedicated to your practice and to consistently be creating, and I think who, I guess, as long as I've known you, you've always been not listening in meetings and illustrating in your sketchbook. I think it's something that like naturally comes out of you. I think my personality is such that I kind of like the pressure point of an exhibition or something comes up. This is very similar to what Helena was saying as well. You know, sometimes it's just, for me, largely it's been the parameter of having to do something within a certain amount of time. Outside of that, I'm honestly just lazy and tired and would rather be napping than doing anything. But it's interesting because I think that I do a lot of work that's more abstract and like fun being the operative word. I don't. I think that our job as designers and as doing work that's very strategic is so. It's so concept heavy and it's so strategy heavy and it's so much thinking and it needs to make so much sense that for me like the playing and the experimenting part of making art is kind of what it's all about. It's very much less about, it's the other way around. And often sometimes I even just see things that I like, that's a reference, that I just want to figure out how they got there. It's not really something, it's a literal copy to see how that process worked, and that'll start something. And then, like Zander said, there's an accident that happens along the way. I've had a lot of very successful accidents. In fact, I've had full exhibitions based on a digital accident that I couldn't even remake if I tried. But yeah, it is sporadic. It's often just deadline driven, or there's like once in a blue moon, there's a bit of a flow state that happens that makes me have to very quickly get a lot of things out of my system. But I think it's good and bad. I think the thing about it is I always feel like I just get to the point after the 7th thing that I'm doing where something starts feeling good, and by then it stops, an exhibition happens, and I leave it for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, and I don't think we need to speak about it lots, but like something that I don't think people, when they see in your art, is that you do work with masking, and you learned that from your dad, I think. I've never truly understood how you do it. Is that some kind of glue that you paint over and then you reveal it?
Yeah, there's like there's a kind of rubber and there's a kind of glue, and you can paint with this glue over, over paint, and it won't pull the paint off. So on a canvas, I'll kind of paint layers, and then it's interesting. I've always seen my dad do this, and he's also a graphic designer that is a really good artist. And he, it just looks. It's quite fun, and it's quite graphic. It makes work that's quite graphic because you're in control of a lot of line work and a lot of masking, and you can cut the masking tape and things like that. So I think. And you see something that is interesting
to you. I think that's quite cool because you like make things and then you're not when you it's like putting the plaster off and then you actually only see the work at the end. Right?
And you have to think almost in silkscreen. You have to think in reverse. You have to know what the negative of something is going to look like. So you kind of try and figure it out and then often fuck it up and then something comes of it and then you kind of have to make a plan on the spot. But it's just nice. It keeps your brain unable to do anything other than focus on a piece of tape.
Brilliant. So we made Helena not ask her question to Zeneka just now so that she can ask it with all of us in earshot. So Helena, do you want to go for it now?
Yeah, I wanted to ask everyone, like, what do you think of when you're making? Okay. What's in your mind? Because I know I can't shut my mind down, and so many things go through it. And then in between of like creating is scrolling on TikTok, which is not. But what do you think of when you're making?
Yeah, I know like when I work on my paintings, especially in like oil paintings, I typically lose my mind as well. So I always need to find something to listen to, or if I'm struggling to find new music, because I always just listen to the same thing over and over until I get sick of it. Then I'll just look for series, which doesn't match the theme of what I'm working on at all. Like I'll be painting my mother's garden and I'm watching The Haunting of Hill House or something, just to take my mind off things. But I notice like when I paint my family photos a lot, I often think back to those times because I typically paint all of my relatives as opposed to me. So just like thinking back to that time and just feeling very nostalgic often. But yeah.
I do a lot of text work, so sometimes I just like sit and stare at the wall and try to think of a good sentence. Like genuinely, this is not like the best answer, but sometimes the gallery will be like, we need more text work. And then I just sit and try to think of text works. And then I don't know if they're bad or not. Sometimes I just sit and like think of words and like decide if they're like a good word or not. That can take a while. Often things are going wrong with my work and then I have to like concentrate on strategizing how to fix it. the carpenter's mantra is like measure twice and cut once. And my strategy is usually like measure once, forget the measurement, cut once, realize it's wrong, cut again, measure again, cut again, try fix it. So often I'm thinking about that. And otherwise, at the moment, just podcasts about the Trump administration. Which is probably not a good idea, but I gotta be honest, that's where it's at right now. Yeah. So I don't know about other people. And you?
Do you listen to music?
So I'll the stuff I'm working on mostly at the moment. I mean, I do a lot of sketchbook stuff, but it has nothing to do really with my paintings that I'm making. The sketchbooks are like no rules, anything goes. It's collages. It's like I'm just a teenager just sticking things down. I buy like children's sticker books and just all sorts of stuff. But for the paintings, I'll start with something very basic like this. It's just a very simple blueprint. So I have some kind of idea that I can like confidently go in and put down some shapes, just so I have a starting point. And then once I have a couple of shapes down, then it's more about asking what does the thing need now? How can I make this thing sparkle and forget about what I thought I wanted it to be? And so I'll put some shapes down, and I think I see it more like I'm more of like a composer with form. I don't really think conceptually. I'll think like, okay, this is starting to look like some weird bat creature. Let's push that back and make it look more like a plant. Okay, now let's put in some sharp edges so it looks more mechanical, like it's more like some kind of alien human-made something. Okay, no, wait, it's getting too mechanical. Let's push it back to the organic. Let's put some curves in there to create like a sense of beauty. And so it's all these things of like, what does this thing that's happening on the canvas make me feel, and how can I maneuver it into a point where this thing can sparkle? It can be its own like weird creature that I just helped exist. So it's really just, it's like problem solving, but it's the same thing that Duchamp said, there is no solution because there's no problem. So you just trying to make this thing come alive. Whether it's just like a simple lattice type of composition that looks like vines, or whether it's some kind of thing that looks like a weird, crazy dinosaur alien creature. It's it's just sometimes you want to paint the vine, but it becomes a dinosaur creature, and sometimes so it's just being a vehicle for the thing, and it's not like being a vehicle for the emotions. It's being a vehicle for like trying to make the best possible image you can and working what's already happened. So that's me.
That's great, man. I like, this is not the first time that you've used the word sparkle, and I absolutely love that, because I feel like your work really, like it feels like a symphony, but I love that word sparkle, and I think that's really, like, that sounds like it's your kind of like one of your internal mantras that you hold to go like,
yes.
is it sparkle? And I
kind of sort of it.
Yeah. And I kind of understand and relate to that, because for me, when I'm always working, I get to a point where I go, it's not bad. I kind of have to always look at it and I go, it's too pretty, or it's looking too refined. I need to make it worse. And I always kind of have to go like, is it bad good? Because if it's too good, and there's like a certain thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because there's all these different words that you can use. It's like it becomes too cheesy, or it becomes too it takes itself too seriously, or like this. It's so interesting to kind of like be in tune with kind of what you want it to be, but because you have your own personal standards of what the image should be, but it's not really that defined. It's just going on your feelings and trusting yourself, trusting your own taste. So knowing that subconsciously you're going to make all these choices, and just trusting that I get to the point where I say to myself, it's not there yet, and then I'm like, it's possible now, and then I know to stop, because I'm never going to get to the point where I'm like, this is amazing. It never happens. you get to the point where it's like, okay, this can pass as a work that I'm not embarrassed by. And now it's time to stop. Because if I go beyond that, it's like that hill. It gets better, better, better. It gets worse, 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 worse. Destroyed.
We talk about that all the time, like knowing when to stop and knowing when to not overwork, because there's no going back from that point.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of self-confidence, actually, like, because if you just have to say, yeah, I made it again.
It's good enough.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fine.
Yeah, it's good enough, and risks
Yeah.
could be better, but the could be worse part is as strong as the could be better part at that point of the tipping point.
Exactly. And it takes a while to actually see the work. So because you might feel, okay, it just passes. But then an hour later of sitting and looking at it more, you're like, okay, it's getting better. And then the next day, it can get worse sometimes. But you're in the right place if you like it more with each passing day. So, yeah.
We've got 5 minutes left of this. Yes.
No, I wanted to say for me, like, okay, yeah, for me, I know sometimes when you do it, you work on it and you're like, oh, I'm not sure I hate it, and you just walk away. And then the next day I walk in, I'm like, who the fuck did this? This is cool. And that's a good.
Who's this weird person who made
Yeah.
this? I love that.
So in the, I think we just need to let Helena also answer her own question before we run out of time, yeah?
I think about a lot. I think, usually what's preoccupying my mind. So a lot of what's preoccupying my mind right now, because I live in Germany, is the rise of fascism, and there's an election that's happening right now. I think of the things I see. So since last year, I've been noticing more and more posters of the police and the military trying to recruit young people, and they'll use like slogan like Generation Polizei, and they'll highlight the Gen and the Z in the police. And then I think also of how ignorant people are sometimes, because I'll ask people like, "Have you not seen that? It was on the tram and they're like, "No, we haven't." Like, it's, so I think about that, and then I'll go on TikTok and scroll to kind of shut down a bit, and then I'll find something on TikTok that annoys me, and I'll obsess over it for a while. Sometimes I even start making up scenarios in my mind of how do I explain the work? Like, how do I talk about what colors I use? When I do finally explain the work, it doesn't come out the way I thought it would. But yeah, I think, I don't know. Right now I'm thinking a lot, being in Cape Town and thinking, oh, I'm leaving Germany. I'm going to the sun. And then realizing there's a lot of Germans in Cape Town. So, yeah. So, yeah. I don't know.
Wait, before you did, but I had a special request from Sarah in the audience. Where is she? Your name was Sarah, right? Oh, there you are.
I just want to say, before I ask that prompt question, there was just one thing about knowing when to stop. And I've developed my own personal theory, which is an intuitive, and I call it an informed intuition as to when to stop. So the informedness comes from years and years of practice and years of experimentation and going with the flow and playfulness. And you develop, just like anyone who practices anything for any length of time, whether it's like jogging or weightlifting, you become better. You become better at intuiting when that painting has arrived at a comfortable stop. That's what I was going to say. But the question was, just as a prompt, because it came up from the four at the beginning, just as a prompt, just putting it out there, devil's advocate. Do you believe that commercial art is antithetical to experimentation? Do you believe that, because in relation to the topic of this discussion here, studio art to art fairs, do we believe that the two are in opposition? Because that's what seems to be at stake here, is that commercial art does not equal or embrace the possibility for artists to be experimental.
What is commercial art to you? Can you define commercial art for us? And
Well, the other part of that question is, do we think that good art can be commercial art? So, yeah, and part of that.
now, what is
Yes.
good art is the question.
I'll be completely honest, I'm not sure what antithetical means, but I'm going to ask.
I have an answer for that. I have a mic. I think when I was at art school, I used to have that question a lot, and I teach, and my students have that question a lot. But I think since leaving art school, I increasingly feel like since we can't escape the economic system we live in, artists having studios and time and materials is most conducive to their making. So I think there are some places where there's like more grant-based access for making, but I think in general there's often like a villainization of commercial practice. But I think for a lot of artists, like I used to work 5 days a week and make art on Sundays. And now I've kind of reached a point where I can make work 4 days a week. So I think commercial practice for a lot of artists just means they have time. It means they have like a platform to share. So I think it does sometimes put some guardrails on what you can make, but I think for a lot of artists, it offers like huge access. So I think sometimes it's overly sort of villainized or treated as a kind of like there's some kind of like binary between like experimentation and commercialization, and that everyone trying to like sell art is like somehow like some kind of like evil businessman trying to like use the artist. And probably some of them are, but also sometimes collectors are just people who love art, and gallerists are just people working in a business, and we're working together. And yeah, I think artists also like we need to pay bills. I don't know how other people feel.
No, I agree, especially in school. Not to talk bad about the art school that I went to, but lecturers were often, I think they felt like they were walking on a lot of sensitive ground, or there's a lot of red tape, which there shouldn't be. I think if you're also a lecturer or an art teacher, it's giving students or people who have that passion like tools to navigate this and how they can also make a living with it. I think they, especially from my experiences with lecturers that I've had, they just don't want a young artist to be exploited. So I think that's a lot where the over-vilification comes. And sometimes it happens, but I had another lecturer that I had a very fond relationship with. She said, you will only learn through the mistakes that you make, and hopefully it's not awful, but that's another really productive way to learn and navigate the art world. Yeah.
I think as much as we'd like the idea of being an artist to be so romantic, and I had such dreams of going somewhere and painting, and I would then going to a cafe and congregating with other artists and writers and have wine at 4 in the afternoon and a cigarette and think of how we're going to change the world and write manifestos.
Magazines.
We're not living in that world where it's overly consumptuous, overly capitalist. We don't have that luxury because we're chasing deadlines. We're chasing deadlines to pay rent, to buy material. It's okay to exist because we're existing in an ecosystem. where there are different role players, different, people who do different things, art dealers, evaluators, packers, and so on. And it is okay for artists to want money. It is okay for an artist to want money to live well, to be able to afford insurance for themselves. And if it means that they sell their work, it's okay. Because we live in a world where, we've seen in this country many great artists who we now celebrate dying with nothing. And it's okay to want to live an okay life. And to vilify or even to call artists sellouts, I think that's lazy and poor, and maybe some people are jealous, but whatever. So can't live in this romantic idea, because even to go to a cafe to afford a coffee that's probably over 20 Rand, how are you going to get there as an artist? And where is that coffee shop? Because it's probably not in the townships. So you'd have to come to Woodstock or into the city. Yeah, we need to be real. Bad art, good art. I think, and also we live in a world that anything can sell. If a banana could sell, I think anything can sell. And that's okay.
I would like to add to that and just say that I think that all art adds value to society.
Yeah.
From the leopard paintings to the Biennale, high intellectual stuff. And that's a good enough reason to just find your place in the art world and do what you want to do.
And also, who decides these value systems? That a Biennale artist is great, and everyone should, talk about them and praise them, versus an artist who paints leopards or the big five. They are equally great, equally as talented. It's also a thing of access, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, thanks.
Cool. I think, I think that's important topics. And I saw a meme yesterday that said, artist affords to pay her rent 3 months in a row, wonders whether she sold out. All art is great. I think we have 10 minutes left. I checked on time, so I think a good thing is to maybe go to some questions, and then we end on where we've got. Gabe, do you want to go first?
I promised to ask a question. It's the only reason I got in, because I didn't RSVP. But my question is actually for Jana and Koos, which is that you guys run a commercial design studio, and you've been discussing kind of these other roles that you have as like making art outside of that. And I'm just curious to know if you approach the way that you do design differently from the way that you approach making art. Like, because I think that there's a distinction there which is kind of related to this discussion now about kind of commercial art and like other art that is sort of made with almost no need for sale at the end.
Yeah, I think, ironically, let's call it experimentation over the word art, but that's kind of what Koos and I became known for, and I guess almost what drew people to the commercial design business was a lot of side projects that we were doing for friends where we could actually just experiment and have some fun and play and push the boundaries without the responsibility of someone's big budget and expectations. We could try things because we're doing it for free for our friends who are launching an album, and it could be some weird experimental show and maybe no one shows up and sometimes tons of people. It was like there was a lot of experimentation, and those were the way more lauded, awarded, interested, weird things that were happening that I think made people interested in the graphic design commercial work that we do, and why people kind of think there's this weird approach or there's something just different, I guess, we get that a lot, there's this raw, there's room for experimentation always, and I think that's why we take it so seriously, and why we, as I guess, as pedestrian as a word play can be, it's a super important, really, really important part of our business and forging kind of new direction and keeping things interesting in a visual world that's very saturated. That's the art experimental side of things and why we'll always do it.
Well, I was also going to say, like, I don't know if you created distinctions. I made that distinction. I don't know if you guys think of them as two separate.
No, we do, because they sit
We
on
try.
opposite. They sit on opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, I mean, the branding is almost the opposite to art in every sense of the word, and it's very business orientated. It's very strategy orientated. Every single thing that needs to be there for a reason and make sense, and art is the place for nothing needing to make sense, not having to have a reason to exist, and just fully kind of experimenting. And a lot of the time, meaning comes out of that, or that finds a place in the other work. But the distinction for us, I think, is there's a huge distinction. And it's nice because we start trying to bridge those worlds a bit, but yeah, we've got to eat, you know. The one is work.
You had a question, right?
Thank you. So the previous question was around commercial art and, you know, what the artists need to do to keep the lights and pay rent. In the previous panel discussion, there was a question around what institutions do and what commercial spaces do for artists, and which has more impact on an artist's career. So, for example, having your work being acquired by a museum versus you making work to sell. But I have another layer of a question there, where if you are working purely, not purely, but a lot of your work gets sold, are there any considerations in when you are making work that at some point there might be opportunity to show in an institution? And if your work is all gone and been bought up, you know, how do you coordinate that? Is there any thinking around that? Why I ask this is because I've been working most of my career on the machine running side of the sector, and I work with predominantly really early stage artists who really, for them, it's I make this work, I'm selling it, it's going to Germany, I'll never see it. And so they don't have a body of work when an opportunity comes up for them to actually have a solo that can then elevate their career. So are there any of those kinds of considerations being made by the artists on the panel?
I don't feel equipped to answer that question. I've only exhibited in a restaurant. But
Congratulations.
but but I don't know if one of you maybe want to briefly touch on that.
There's usually a record of where your art has gone, and you can get things on consignment from the collector. And often collectors, I mean, this is I'm not at this level, but collectors are often quite happy to lend works to institutions because it offers cultural capital to their collection as well. So yeah, if you have a record of who's bought your work, even on a small scale, I've done like experimental shows and texted friends who have my work and been like, can I borrow it? And they're happy to do that usually.
Yeah, and I think if we can say something on keeping it to the place of experimental and play, and we can only speak for ourselves, we had our open studios the other night, and it was great motivation to just create lots, like test out and try out lots of different things, and with that you often have stuff when people ask you for it. So I think it's important to just keep making. It's time to wrap up, and we're not really sure how we're going to show the work and speak about it, but yeah.
we just
And
don't show
I mean,
Shall we-
you can also say you don't want to say anything. Don't feel any pressure.
How do can we do close-ups with people?
Must we turn them the right way around?
I'm sorry.
Maybe, I mean, only because you're closest, right?
Okay, so I made 5 things. The middle one is my favorite. Probably second favorite is the birds and ladders. If this one was on a better paper, like this cream paper, it would probably be nicer. But the screen cardboard, this also kind of directionless. The feathers is just pure toddler. But I thought let's really go for the children vibes. As well, I think this could potentially
Be worth something.
be something. Like I don't hate it. It's got like a light element. It's got this looks. It feels like a farm landscape or something with a weird cloud. It's okay. It's got balance. It's got a heaviness, a lightness. I even signed it there, thinking maybe it's a thing.
Wait, but is this how it works? Do you know when it's good you sign it?
No. I sign my stuff like when it gets picked up, like the day before on the back. But,
That's cool. It's definitely the beginnings of a symphony there.
thank you. Yeah, it's a light Claude Debussy or whatever you call it. Impressionist composition. Yeah.
Luca, I see you've got some emotional support tape there.
I do. This is mine.
Sorry, what was your prompt? Can we start with
Mine
that?
was, if only there was a little bit more, but to be honest, I'm still preoccupied with the rise of fascism and the Trump administration. I really have been. I've been thinking about it too. I don't know if anyone else is feeling like this. It's really in my head a lot. Like even while talking about other stuff, in the back of my head is like, it's there. So I kept thinking if only there was a little bit less, because that's kind of how I'm feeling in the world right now. So I made a house on fire, which is just what I felt. And then I made a hand, but then I found these nice dogs, and I put them in the corner. So I don't know. That's just where some thoughts were at right now. Yeah, that's just what happened in 30 minutes with when fascism's in your head. I don't know. Yeah.
And I just spent most of the 30 minutes looking through the food at home, getting hungry, saving recipes. But I was just like drawn to the things that I always use in my practice. I don't often collage, so it was nice to play around. I haven't really been playing much in my practice, so it was nice to touch base with that. I don't really want to show you guys. It looks really bad. It's not really much, but yeah.
It's enough.
Thank you. Well, my prompt was greeted by the blank, and I don't know, I was just thinking about things that I always encounter in the mundane, like just my always go-to things, like the sugar, glass of milk, and I was just thinking about the past. I often dwell too much in the past. But yeah, sorry guys, it's not that good. Yeah.
You're not allowed to say sorry.
Ugh.
It's important
Okay,
to
you're
just
welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I'm thinking of that sound. That's like, I would like to show you my my talent, and it's like, share the talent. So share the talent, guys. I made something. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna show it because I like it. Yeah. Oh, actually, wow.
Yeah.
This is something I've started doing 2 years in my studio, where I just layer and layer paint, and I'm using cloth, and in that layering it's also peeling off. So I use steel wool and sandpaper to peel off and to reveal scratches and marks and create marks. And I put a little character that I often use in my work. It's a character that has a buffalo horn, and I see this character as a seer and keeper of time and memory, and it observes all the things. And I think, I mean, I don't know, anyway, so my prompt was I, therefore I make, therefore I am, I don't know. But with this character and the work that I look at is very historical, very political, very heavy. It's keeping my family's stories and their memories, and therefore I am. So, yay, thank you.
I think that's time. I'm sure there's thousands more questions. We only got to 2 of the questions we wrote down. So, but this has been amazing, and I think we were very stressed that it might be super awkward. It feels like it was everything but. I think this felt very intimate and incredibly lucky for all of us to just see you all in action. And I guess we were a bit worried that it might be too much to speak whilst drawing. You all seemed very, very comfortable and almost more comfortable talking whilst doing and making. So thanks for doing that in front of all of us. And
Yeah, thanks for being troopers. I wouldn't have.
thank you.